These people are the reason we want to believe hell actually exists. Join me today as I count down the top 10 most notorious serial killers of all time. Number 10. Fred and Rose West. Fred West and his wife Rose tortured, raped, and murdered at least 11 young girls from 1967 to 1987, many of them in their home, which later became known as the House of Horror. They were finally apprehended and charged in 1994 after police obtained a search warrant and located several human bones buried within the garden and under the floorboards. Having been arrested and during his trial, Fred West hanged himself in his prison cell prior to being convicted. In 1995, Rose West was jailed for life, having been found guilty on 10 counts of murder. Their house at Cromwell Street was demolished in 1996 to discourage souvenir hunters. Number 9. Andrei Chikatilo. Nicknamed the Butcher of Rostov, Chikatilo committed the sexual assault, murder, and mutilation of at least 52 women and children in Russia between 1978 and 1990. Following careful surveillance, Chikatilo was arrested and he confessed to a total of 56 murders and was tried for 53 of these. The victims' relatives demanded he be released so that they could kill him themselves. He was executed by firing squad in February 1994. Number 8. Tommy Lynn Sells. Claiming to have killed at least 70 people, Tommy Lynn Sells is considered one of the most dangerous offenders in Texas, United States, and has been convicted of several brutal murders between 1985 and 1999, including stabbing a 13-year-old girl 16 times. He was arrested when one of his attempted victims survived and alerted the neighbors of his presence. She provided a detailed description of Sells to police, which eventually led to his capture. Sentenced to death, he remains on death row at a high-security prison in Livingston, Texas. Number 7. Pedro Rodrigues Filho. This Brazilian serial killer was arrested in 1973 and convicted in 2003 for killing at least 71 people and sentenced to 128 years imprisonment. Committing his first killing at the age of 14, he began a series of burglaries and carried out a murdering spree against local drug dealers in revenge for his girlfriend being killed by criminals whilst he was in prison. Whilst in prison, he executed his own father, who was also serving time for murder. Remarkably, he went on to kill at least 47 inmates while in prison. Initially sentenced to just 30 years imprisonment, his continued killings have led to further convictions and his sentence has been increased to 400 years imprisonment. Number 6. Luis Garavito. Currently topping the list of serial killers by number of victims, with 138 proven victims and 172 to well over 300 possible ones. A child murderer, torture killer, and rapist known as La Bestia or the Beast. He confessed to killing 140 children over a 5-year period in Colombia. Garavito was arrested on 22nd April of 1999. He confessed to murdering 140 children and was charged with killing 172 altogether throughout Colombia. He was found guilty on 139 of the 172 accounts. The others are ongoing. Although the maximum sentence for murder in Colombia multiplied by 139 comes to 1,853 years and 9 days, Colombian law limits imprisonment to 40 years. Because he helped police find some bodies as well as to his confessions, his sentence was further reduced to 22 years. He may possibly qualify for even earlier release for further cooperation and good behavior. Number 5. Jeffrey Dahmer. Known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer was an American serial killer and sex offender who raped, murdered, and dismembered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. He also committed necrophilia and ate parts of his later victims, dismembering and cooking parts of their bodies within his home. Dahmer was eventually caught after a would-be victim managed to overpower him and alert police. In 1992, Dahmer was convicted of 15 of the murders and sentenced to 15 terms of life imprisonment. However, just 2 years into his sentence, he was beaten to death by a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution. Number 4. John Wayne Gacy. Killer clown John Wayne Gacy sexually assaulted and murdered 33 teenage boys and young men in a series of killings between 1972 and 1978 in Chicago, Illinois. He lured victims to his home with the promise of work or money before murdering them by strangulation with a tourniquet. Gacy buried 26 of his victims in the crawl space under his home before disposing of later victims in the Des Plaines River. Convicted of 33 murders, Gacy was sentenced to death. He spent 40 years on death row before he was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. Number 3. Ted Bundy. One of the most widely known murderers of the 20th century, Ted Bundy was an American serial killer and rapist who kidnapped or overpowered numerous young women and girls during the 1970s. Bundy typically approached his female victims in a public place and led them to secluded areas where he would sexually assault and kill them. He decapitated at least 12 victims and kept the severed heads in his apartment as trophies. Repeatedly captured, he managed to escape from police and courthouses twice before going on to commit 3 further killings. Convicted of multiple murders, he was sentenced to death. He was executed by means of electric chair in 1989. Number 2. Gustave. Shockingly, the world's most prolific serial killer is not a human at all. Gustave is a large male Nile crocodile from Burundi. He is notorious for being a man-eater and is rumored to have killed as many as 300 humans from the banks of the Ruzizi River and the northern shores of Lake Tanganyika. Though the actual number is difficult to verify, he has obtained near mythical status and is greatly feared by the people in the region. Even though many have tried to capture him, none have succeeded to this day. Number 1. Jack the Ripper. Deep inside you knew this one was coming. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer who terrorized the streets of London in 1888. It is generally believed that there were 5 victims of Jack the Ripper. They were Mary Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Kelly. More murders have been attributed to the Ripper, but the 5 ones I just mentioned, dubbed the canonical 5, are the most well known and likely. He would kill his victims and then proceed to gut them with his knife, disemboweling them and leaving them on display. A large number of letters were sent to the police claiming to be from the killer, most notably the one containing the half-eaten human kidney and the one signed Jack the Ripper, from which the infamous murderer got his nickname. Over 100 people were suspected to be the identity of Jack the Ripper, but nobody was ever convicted. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Watch my last video and stay tuned for the next one. See ya!